Would you be interested in dealing next year's first rounder and then paying him $30 million a year over a 3 to 4 year period to be Washington's starting edge defensive end? With it would come a lot of sacks, a lot of pressures, and a completely different defense on passing downs. That's for sure. I would have been all over, as you know, Myles Garrett, had he actually been made available. And I think the team would have been as well. Next year's first is a little bit less expensive than this year's first, and they didn't give up this year's first. And I don't know that, it's a first. It might be a first and more that Cincinnati would be looking for. But that's the hypothetical we're going with. A first rounder next year, and you got to rip up, his current deal and pay him $30+ million a year. It would be a massive deal. Would you do it? Yes or no? I would certainly consider it. I'd actually, believe it or not, lean a little bit away from it for this reason. I don't like the process and how public he's been over the last month and a half. He is not a one-trick pony necessarily, but they need an all-around great player at that position. I would have been willing to pay a lot more for Myles Garrett. I would have been willing and would be willing to pay a lot more for TJ Watt. I like Trey Hendrickson as a player. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know that I want next year's first and a big chunk of the cap over the next 2 to 3 years to go to a guy that would just be, for all intents and purposes, he's not a terrible run stopper, but he's not what some of the others are. If you told me he's getting 17 and a half the next 2 years, I think I'd probably do it. But there's no guarantee that that's what he ends up getting, and he's going to be 31 years old. I'd lean against it, but I wouldn't, totally be against it if they went ahead and did it. What about you, Max? Max? Let's go to the phone lines.
My fault. Screening a call.
That's all right. You're multitasking.
It's true.
Would you do the trade, yes or no, quickly?
For Trey Hendrickson, I kind of like the spot where we're in right now. I value the draft picks in the same way that Adam Peters does, which is very high. So at this moment, for like a first, no, I would not do it.
He doesn't value him as highly as we thought he did. They had five of them in this draft, and they only have 5 next year. They traded away 8 picks for 3 players. Let's not forget that. Let's go to Marcus in Brandywine. Marcus, a first for Trey Hendrickson, then you got to pay him top 3 to 4 money in the NFL at the position. Would you do it?
I would. I would do it, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we didn't do it. Which honestly, I feel like it's highly unlikely that we won't do it anyway. But I wouldn't hate it. It really, I think it all depends on, kind of the mindset that the front office has of this team currently. Like, do you truly believe that these next 2 years is the true Super Bowl window? And are you willing to invest in, bringing in more talent with that sacrifice being losing draft capital in the future? Now, if you were to tell me that over these next 2 years that at one of them we'd win a Super Bowl with bringing in Trey Hendrickson, but we'd lose our first rounder next year, would I do it? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. But that's a given. Yeah. And that's the question, Marcus. Like, does he increase your chances of winning a Super Bowl, getting to a Super Bowl? He does, but by how much? It's certainly not a lock. If you told me that Myles Garrett, that he was traded for back in February, and we were getting ready to suit up Myles Garrett this year, I think Washington would actually be one of the they're already, a top 3 to 4 favorite in the NFC. They'd be no worse than the second pick in the NFC and maybe like the 4th overall, 5th overall in the NFL to win the whole thing. That to me would be an absolute no-brainer. But Hendrickson, is he going to continue this rate? Is he good enough on early rundowns? That's where they really struggled more than anything else. Mm-hmm. I trust them, though. I would. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jeff in Vienna. Jeff, I think, is a Bengals season ticket holder. Jeff, go ahead.
Happy Tuesday, Kevin. I'm a fellow Terp as well, Cincinnati native. You give me a first for him, I'll send him on a plane to you right away. Definitely. You're right. He is a total one-trick pony. He doesn't know the definition of the word contain. Teams throw screens behind him and run end arounds on him all the time. He's a great pass rusher. That's all he is. Good guy, very religious, super good in the community, great guy. But I'd take a first for him in a heartbeat if you guys are going to pay him the money.
I don't think that they're going to do it unless it is a first at this point. Do you agree with that? I mean, if it were a first and a third for this just completed draft, it can't be a second and a third for next year's draft.
Well, the thing is, nobody wins this battle with the Brown and the Blackburn family. They're not going to give in. He just signed a 1-year extension 2 years ago, and he's got 18.8 million reasons to be on the field in September. Katie Blackburn is not going to give in on this, no matter how much he whines, his agent whines, whatever. It's just not how they do business.
No, they don't. They're stubborn. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Let's go to Ian. Ian, yes or no?
I would say yes, and I hear the previous caller's one-trick pony point, but that's a pretty important trick for this defense to have because this team lacks that skill immensely. And, you know, we talk a lot about why there's a lot of buzz because of Jaden Daniels and for valid reasons. But you mentioned earlier, a couple of days ago, that there isn't the season ticket excitement and over-the-top excitement that you would expect, and you equate it to the name. I equate it to the lack of excitement in free agency and draft. Even though they did, Kevin, people, of course, are excited for Jaden Daniels, but when your big acquisitions are first round is a lineman and your big free agent pickup is a lineman, that's not exciting. Like if they picked up T. Higgins, I think there would have been a little bit more tangible excitement for the upcoming season.
Minimal.
Okay, minimal. But my point is, can we get a playmaker on defense? And Trey Hendrickson would be that. If they had picked up Myles Garrett, that would have been exciting. Like my point is, and I'm not hearkening back to the Snyder years, but this offseason has been so methodical / dull. I would like to see a Trey Hendrickson to bring some excitement.
They traded for one of the best left tackles in the game. I understand the position you regard as dull, but they traded for Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil in the offseason. Okay,
Deebo Samuel would be exciting if it was 5 years ago.
I understand, but the dullness is based on sort of the positional ad versus were they active? They were very active, and they would have been even more active, I think, if Myles Garrett had been available.
Of course,
but yeah.
So my point. So getting back to your question, I'm a yes on Trey Hendrickson because I think it would be a crucial addition to a position that Washington needs. In a market that they need that. Like, it's a position of need. Their defense is no better on paper than it was last year. Why not go for it? You know, you're trying to win now. You're trying to win in this rookie.
I think they've been interested. I think they've been interested, but I think they are, with this particular player, probably more so than they would have been with Garrett. It's got to be the right value. And Cincinnati's probably asking for too much, and maybe he's asking for too much at 30 years old. Thanks for the call. Good input from Ian. Let's go to Bay in D.C. Bay, would you trade a first rounder and then pay Trey Hendrickson?
Hey, what's up, Kevin? I wouldn't trade a first rounder to Cincinnati. I wouldn't trade a first rounder to Cincinnati to save my life. They are the worst when it comes down to paying their players and how they treat their players. I look back at Carson Palmer, I think. They wouldn't even let this man go. They said, we'd rather you retire, Bingo, than let you go. That just goes to show you how chaotic it is in their front office. And we know about chaos because we had Snyder and the Clown Show here in D.C. So at the end of the day, I think he can go for either a second or a third. They know they're not going to get a first for him because somebody's going to have to pay for him. And I think he just
you might be right. We don't have a second next year, so just understand that.
Yes, sir.
But and our first would be a projected late first round pick because we're supposed to be really good next year. So there is that as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm settling in on the first because it's next year and it's discounted from this year, and they couldn't get a first and a night 2 pick this year. I think the issue is, do you think he increases the possibility of being in the Super Bowl enough to justify the expense? Miles Garrett, no brainer. And the expense would have been almost immaterial. Obviously, you're not going to trade 5 years of first round picks. Trey Hendrickson is definitely, as our Cincinnati guy mentioned, he's much more of a one trick pony than Miles Garrett is.